This is BKL Nightly. I'm Thad Brown along with Caleb Carr, Rachel Liber, another full house here on a Thursday. Today what we're going to do is react to all the different things that Joe Brady talked about at the owners' meeting this week in Phoenix. He held court for a good 45 minutes, a lot to chew on, some news, some information, a little bit of a surprise, but really kind of, guys, the first time we get a look at the Bills' new head coach in an extended press conference setting. I know we did some of that at the Combine, but with the Combine, it's kind of 15 minutes and then the next guy comes in. With this setting, it's every AFC coach basically for an hour in a room. So Brady hit on a lot of different topics. The first one I want to get to, I think, is the one that made the most news, talking about Dalton Kincaid. And the question was, hey, this is a good player, but you don't play that much. How do you fix that? How do you change that? And how comfortable are you with what the plan already is for what the Bills are going to do with Dalton Kincaid going forward? And what Brady said was, look, I can't predict the future. He's definitely a difference maker in the playoffs. We want to have him out there. And this is what Brady said in terms of what that plan is going to be.
There's a lot of things that, he's pushing through that you guys might not see. And I think some of it is just learning how to play with certain elements of some movements that it might not feel great. And he's had to push through that. But when he's out there, we're better. That's undeniable. And getting a plan with our strength staff, with our science, performance team of figuring out what that looks like week to week. Like, how much does he have to practice so that he's ready to go? What do we have to do with his movements? Because I'm understanding how important he is, right? And I do believe practice is important, but I also don't want a guy where he does so much in practice that he can't be the same person in the game. And so figuring out the ebbs and flows of it.
So the key phrase for me there is getting a plan. In other words, Brady is, and you have to kind of really dig into the weeds on the comment to see this, but he does say that there is a plan, that there needs to be a plan, that he has to figure it out. Kincaid does work with it. So Rachel, give me your take first on the revelation that this knee injury is not something the Bills believe is going to apparently go away 100%.
I think this might be the first time that we've maybe heard a coach fully admit that. I think maybe they've been kind of not hiding behind that fact, but just because Dalton Kincaid, Joe Brady said it, when he's on the field, he makes them better. And that's, what we've seen last season and the seasons before. So I think it's the first time that maybe they fully come to terms with he is not, there has to be a plan in place, because we've said this too. He can't stay healthy. So what does that look like? And keeping that core tight end room kind of brings a lot more questions of, okay, he still needs to fill that role that they expected of him last year, but how do we do that? So I think it was interesting that they, finally maybe said what people have been thinking this whole time.
I agree that I honestly think it's a good thing that they finally came out and were like, all right, listen, everyone's asking about this. It's kind of obvious. We're trying to figure it out. We're working through it. I didn't like the comment that he made towards the beginning about how, it wasn't like, I can't remember if it was in the soundbite that we played or not, but he talks about how this wasn't just a thing that happened. It was, he had it last offseason and he worked through it last offseason. He didn't just sit back and say, all right, I got a knee injury, I'll worry about it later. He worked through it last offseason, and that I think it's something along the lines of trying to figure out how to play with it. That's not, I don't like hearing that. Because when a coach says part of the plan is trying to figure out how to play with an injury, that means you don't think the injury's going anywhere anytime soon. And that's not promising in any way. That's for sure a place I landed on too. Looking at the doctors, the people out there who are doctors who talk about this stuff on social media, the general really summing it up, Cliff Notes version is that you can't, if you do a surgery, it's not necessarily better for fixing this. Now, there may be problems with rehab only, but unless those problems show up and that the knee is unstable, then there really isn't an overwhelming motivation to get the surgery done. So this is something the Bills are going to have to deal with. And like you said, Caleb, that's a concern, because even with DJ Moore, this is still a top 3 pass catching option on your team. I think the good news is that even though the Bills have picked up the 5th-year option, the next 2 years of cap hits for Kincaid are $4 million this year, $8 million next year. You'll roll the dice on a guy that athletic all day long. So the financial commitment is not huge. But this is still a guy that certainly can ruin your season, because if he's not good in January and you don't add anything else or nothing else develops, well, then it's the DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir show. And we've kind of seen how that works out already. It's not good enough. So there's a worry there. But I guess where are you guys now in terms of
what we think we're going to get from Kincaid. Forget about what Brady said. We know what the situation is now, right? This is apparently a knee injury they're going to deal with. Maybe not predict the future, but Caleb, what do you think the Bills hope to get from Dalton Kincaid going forward for just this season? Let's not project it out his full career. For 2026, what's kind of the goal?
What they hope?
Yes.
I mean, well, I think they hope that they can figure it out this offseason and they can figure out some sort of practice plan where he's...
Doesn't that feel kind of delusional? Because they had the same problem last year.
It does feel delusional. Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you have the problem last year and it didn't work, you can look at what you did and say, okay, this didn't work. You can make changes to his plan. You can make changes to how he rehabs, how he practices throughout the week. I think the hope is that you find a way where he's good to go by the beginning of the season, and you don't practice him too much during the regular season, and that he's good to go nearly every Sunday. I don't think that's what will happen. I think we're probably just going to end up seeing a copy of what last year was.
I think reflecting more on this, I kind of like the word delusional because it makes it feel like, all of a sudden we're realizing he's maybe not going to be healthy, and then what do we do? And I think too, thinking on the fact that they brought Dawson Knox back, and they're keeping, like I said, keeping this core tight end group, it makes me think that they just kind of thought, oh, this is going to work. I mean, he's going to be fine. And now maybe they're realizing, we can't do as much with this injury as we can. So I'm in with Caleb. I think we'll probably see a similar version of last year, but I don't think that's what the Bills should have maybe settled on. And I think keeping Knox there, you could have maybe ventured other options or ventured out for other options. But I think now it's kind of like, well, now this is what we have.
I don't think there were many other options. We did talk briefly about Dallas Goedert as an option, and he ended up going back to Philly, so I don't think he was really going to leave the Eagles anyway. To Caleb's point before, though, I do think there is something to be said about we know more how to manage it, so there's a better chance to do it. The delusional part drops in, and at other points in this press conference, Joe Brady constantly mentioned how I'm talking to the sports science guys. Like he's got the answer to everybody's injury problems. And maybe he does, but the idea that this new coach who's never done this job before is going to solve so many injury issues, which are of the 80 things he's got to do already, are probably not in his purview other than setting the schedule. That's the part where I land on delusional for this team. Now, I don't know what other tack they take. It's not like they can just roll into the season and say, if you play 7 games, it's fine. They want it to be better. The other part of this for me is if you can get Dalton Kincaid, or let me put it this way, I almost feel like Kincaid lives in the Joey Bosa world from this time last year, in that if we get 3 great games out of him in January, then it's cool. The rest of the season, if it's 10 games, if it's 7, he's out there for half a season, we'll live with that because the guy was unquestionably great in the Denver game. You get 3 of those in the playoffs, and it's a win for the Bills this year.
I mean, yes, but I also think that this is a team that just because they have we've talked a bunch about how new head coach, we have to kind of temper expectations on the Bills this year. They're still pushing for a playoff spot, and that wasn't the easiest to come by last season. And if you just kind of take Kincaid out, if you're just like, we don't need him for the regular season, that's what we were saying about Joey Bosa last year was don't worry about him in the regular season. Keep him in a bubble until January. I don't think they can do that with Kincaid. I think they need Kincaid in order to make a push in the season.
Yeah, I think quickly too, I think the loss of him, in quotes, I guess, of just maybe not him being as at full potential, I think is a much bigger issue than maybe it seems right now, because I think Kincaid is such a big part, especially too if you don't fill that receiver hole and get that situation figured out. I think Kincaid not being fully healthy is a big problem.
Right. Sitting here right now is an issue. If they go receiver in round 1 and round 3, it might not look as bad in a few weeks here. Speaking of receiver, of course, Joe Brady was asked about Keon Coleman. The simple question is, how do you figure out Keon Coleman? Here's what Joe Brady's response to that was at the owners' meetings.
He just takes care of himself off the field, and he just shows up. He's gonna be good to go. Like the growth that Keon's gonna have from this year to next. Like Keon is on our football team. Keon, I've never said anything negative. I was the first to tell everybody I want a Keon Coleman. So we're not. Keon's not going to just be pushed aside. He's going to continue to develop, and Drew Troll's going to. We have a great plan of what we're going to do to be able to get him to be the receiver that we ultimately drafted to be. And we're in constant communication with him. He works, right? He reminds me a lot of the guys that was with at LSU in terms of their personality, their work ethic. It's just about now just making sure I'm there, doing what I have to do so that I can go out on the football field and do my thing.
We've been playing this game for quite a while. Rachel, do we think it'll be any different this year with Keon Coleman after that?
think he has a better. I think leadership-wise, nobody has more faith in Keon Coleman than maybe Joe Brady does right now. So I think that is a positive. But I mean, even in the past 2 weeks, we've talked about what this receiver room looks like. We haven't even really considered Keon a part of the picture. I mean, so I think there's potential for him to be fine. But I mean, even Joe Brady mentions work ethic. But I think that was the issue that was why the work ethic part of it was he was missing meetings and he was missing, not showing up to things. And I think it's interesting to see that perspective. I don't know if he's just saying that because it's coach talk and you're put under, the spotlight and the microphones in front of your face. But I don't know. I don't see this being a turnaround year for Keon. But I think maybe as far as the mental, just being with Joe Brady might be better for him. But I don't think it'll produce on the field.
I mean, is it safe to bring the word delusional back into this conversation?
I mean, look,
too?
it's April. We're going to get a lot of that this time of year, to be fair. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
To me, this soundbite, this clip, it's the same thing that we've been hearing about Keon since forever. I mean, it's nothing new. It's just the continue. Yeah, he's got to keep working. At this point, I mean, when we first started talking about it, when it was Terry. And it was Brandon Bean out there. I mean, there was conversation we had, but at this point in the season or in the year, I'm just like, all right, I have no thoughts until I see him back out on the field for training camp. Like, there's just nothing else that you can say to me to make me convinced that this season is going to be any better than last season.
It does feel like the next step is not Keon figuring it out. The next step is us being bored enough with the conversation that we don't talk about it anymore. Or other players play so well. Like, for example, we get to 4 weeks into the season and DJ Moore is 100 yards a week and Josh Palmer is going 5 for 50.
Yeah.
No one cares what Keon Coleman's doing anymore. But it does feel like that is the next step as opposed to Keon improving. The one thing I'll say, too, right at the end there, Joe Brady talks about comparing his work ethic to Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase.
That was really interesting.
Exactly. You remember when we didn't talk about this at all, but Joe Brady, I don't remember. It wasn't at this. It was some other. Oh, he had an interview with Tom Pelissero, and he was referring to Josh Allen in terms of playing with the broken foot. He said he could barely walk, and there he is winning games. I went back and watched practice video. I can confirm to you that Josh Allen was walking fine. The point is, Joe Brady's style, I think, is that he's not going to be afraid to lay it on absolutely thick to support his guys. And I'll tell you what, if they start winning, then it's going to be the head coach has our guys back. He's there for them. He's going to make everybody look good. It can work the other way too, but this is just the way Brady wants to operate. I'm kind of fine with it.
Yeah, I'm not upset about it. I mean, me and Rachel were having a conversation in the office before about how Brady, when he talks, often just he doesn't say a lot, but I keep getting this sense of like, yeah, but he sounds different than most head coaches. And I think that might be what it is like he is just ready to die for his guys. And not saying that other head coaches aren't, but when they're in a media setting, it's a little bit more mild, where Joe Brady just cranks that thing up to 100 and it's just full go all the time.
I'm going to revisit that in a couple of sound bites. So
okay.
Just pin that for a minute. You all set with
yeah,
Keon?
I think we've been all set with Keon
yes.
for quite some time.
Yes. Good answer. All right, let's move on to the Josh Allen soundbite. And this was an interesting point because Brady got a question about how you're the head coach now. So managing Josh Allen is different. Before, as the offensive coordinator, you might have been laser focused on, I need to get a first down. I need to score a touchdown. But now you're in charge of everything, and you're in charge of making sure that Josh Allen's around for 2, 3, 4 years, if not, 10, 12, 14 weeks. Is it different now when you're the head coach? And what Brady said is, look, I want Josh Allen. I'm on his side. I want him to get everything he deserves. And then he talked about his plan this way.
I have to take care of him so that he can do those things, right? Because I know there's some elements where when he gets out there, like I said, he had 1 foot and he's out there jumping, hurdling. The year that he couldn't throw with his elbow, he's like, we were like, he played against Minnesota, and we were like, whatever you can, you just can't take a hit. First drive, he's in open field and he tries running the guy over, right? Like, that's how his mind works. So the more that, sometimes you tell a guy he can't do something, he's going to be like, oh, you think I can't do it, right? And that's what makes him him. So I'm always going to try to protect him. I know we don't get where we need to without Josh Allen, right? And so, but I'm not thinking I'm not thinking differently than I was as an OC.
So do we think that Joe Brady, now with this new responsibility, that has been a talking point for Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott for a good 2 years about letting Josh be Josh without letting Josh kill Josh. How does Brady approach that? And Caleb, do we like where he is at least beginning his path down protecting the franchise quarterback.
I mean, I think I'm in the boat of people that I don't really think their relationship and their goals together are going to be hugely different. I mean, like, I get that when you're the offensive coordinator, like you said, like, your goal is, okay, this game, like, what do I have to do with Josh Allen for this game? But I think, like, if you're an NFL offensive coordinator, you have to, like, you still have to kind of assume that you're going to be with the team next year. So you don't want to, like, put him in a hole. Like, you don't want to get Josh Allen injured and then not have him for the next season if you're still having that job. So I think Joe Brady's always had that, like, I need to keep Josh Allen healthy. I need to keep him around. And I don't think that really changes much when he becomes the head coach. It just becomes that now he's also thinking about the rest of the team. So I think in that aspect, his relationship with Allen is going to stay the same. But like he said, I don't think that you can try to stop Josh Allen from being Josh Allen. Now that he's the head coach, maybe he can push it a little bit more, and maybe he can, like, forcefully not call certain plays to make sure that things don't happen that maybe he couldn't when he was just the OC. But it's Josh Allen. You're not going to be able to stop whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, I second basically everything you just said. I think it's probably pretty much the same. I mean, I think anybody in the Bills organization doesn't, like, their main priority is Josh Allen. I feel like that's really, I mean, which it should be, is the reason that they've had this much success. But I don't think things will change. And I think maybe there might be a little bit more power just because he is the head coach. But two, I mean, I always think Joe Brady and Josh Allen are, like, close in age. Like, you would think, like, obviously he's your head coach, you got to listen to him, and I get that. But, like, to me too, it's just a similar relationship of, you know, I'm going to tell you the things you need to do, but Josh Allen's going to do what Josh Allen wants to do.
Joe Brady also talked about how they had a meeting about laying out. First of all, Josh Allen said, you didn't get the job because I told everybody you did, which may or may not be true. But regardless, I appreciate the fact he's doing that in a meeting. He also said, look, we laid out things so that when it's week 12 and we're mad at each other, we can remember, hey, this is how we keep each other accountable. This is how we're going to manage things. So that kind of, I think, will fold into how he manages running Josh on the field. And really, two things about this. Number one, it feels like the entire conversation, separate of whoever the head coach was in the organization, has been, we kind of tried to hold him back. It didn't work, so we're just going to let him go. And whether it was Sean McDermott or Joe Brady, that would still be the case. And the other thing is, we probably won't really know until it's week 2 and it's 3rd and 1, and we see, is Joe Brady calling a QB keeper, or is he a handoff to Ty Johnson? That's when we'll get the answer to exactly where he's going with this particular conversation. The next one of the ones I found the most interesting from Joe Brady, was getting a question about bringing a guy like CJ Gardner-Johnson into the mix, someone who maybe Sean McDermott or that culture would not have embraced as much. And does he fit? But B, and more importantly, did the Bills need the edge that we think CJ Gardner-Johnson is going to bring, that he apparently takes with him everywhere? And Brady says, look, on one hand, you want to have some guys who check all the boxes. In other words, are the choir boys. And then on the other hand, you know, having CJ Gardner-Johnson around may not be such a bad idea.
You want some guys that are going to stir the locker room a little bit, or going to, we go out to practice and it doesn't matter what it's going to look like, how late it is in the season, they're going to go. And you need those type of guys. And so, and I feel comfortable as a head coach knowing that I can kind of talk to those guys and relate it. But I told Beam when we went through this process, like, let's not take anyone out of an evaluation just because of their background. Let's talk through it. Let's figure out what their issues might be. And a guy like Chauncey has the edge that I think will be great for us.
So we were talking before about Joe Brady says a lot of things and he's willing to put things out there to support his guys. This one, to me, is the interesting test case, because if CJ Gardner-Johnson blows up, that quote is going to be jammed down Joe Brady's throat every minute that CJ Gardner-Johnson is suspended, causing a problem, because he has put himself out there as saying that I'm cool with it. I want a guy that stirs the locker room. Now, we're going to talk about whether he's right in a minute, because he very easily could be. But in terms of how he is as a coach and what he's saying, I think one of the reasons he's saying so many things is that hasn't happened yet. We haven't had the head coach moment to where, wait a minute, you said this and it didn't work and now you're going to go away from it? No, you're going to have to face this thing that you said. You guys can talk about that if you want. But Rachel, separate of that, we knew CJ Gardner-Johnson was a level of risk. After hearing Joe Brady talk about it, how much do you like the choice differently to bring him on board?
I mean, the more I think about it, I think there's Joe Brady and other, within this decision to bring him in have said, we need a guy that has edge. We need a guy that brings the juice. But like, there is a difference between someone has the edge and someone who causes problems. And I don't think, yes, he's a guy that is gonna, like it says on here, causing a stir. I get that. But also, I think it very easily could flip a switch of being an issue, because that's what it has been. He brings the energy, but to what degree? Like, what is the threshold, I guess? So I think it is a very big risk, because just knowing the type of person he is, yes, you want somebody in the locker room that's gonna kind of be that person, but I don't think you need that person necessarily. And Joe Brady said, you need a guy on the team like that. I don't think you do, and if it's been proven to be an issue, I think this is certainly something that I could easily see not working out with this team.
Stay with me for a second. You know how
strap in, everybody.
He hasn't even started.
You know how a toddler, if they're doing something they're not supposed to, coloring on the wall, hitting their sibling, whatever, if you tell them to stop doing it, most likely they're going to continue doing it.
This is 100% true, by
right?
the way.
So
every parent at home is like just nodding up and down. Yeah.
I was a toddler once. I still do that. So
me and Caleb might still be toddlers.
I still kind of do that. I think it could be a similar thing with Johnson, though, where all of these past teams, and listen, I haven't really looked into too much of when he joined the teams, but if all these past teams are saying, hey, we love this edge you bring, but you gotta tone it down a little bit, we gotta bring it down to this level, right? And that's just not really working for him. And then Joe Brady comes around, he's like, nah, I want that. Like, bring it to my locker room, let's go, let's do it. That might be positive and kind of help us separate the edge in the problem, if that makes sense, where he just brings the energy, the passion, the fire, but he leaves out the causing problems in the locker room. I think that could be one way that if it's going to be successful, that it could be.
Separating the edge from the problem is a great way to put it. And I will say that the more I've thought about this move, the more I've liked it. On our free agent show, I talked about how I thought it was one of the best bargains in all of free agency. Mm-hmm. They're not paying him a ton of money. So if it goes bad, they can hit the eject button at any time, most likely. Obviously, problem in the safety room. You do have Geno Stone back there, but whatever. And I've thought many times during the McDermott era that they needed more guys like this. Or maybe needed is the wrong word, because Rachel's right. I don't know if you do need this, but this can help. And not having access to a guy like this, I wonder if that's been the thing that's kept them from getting over the top. No one really knows why this team has had 1,000 playoff chances and 0 Super Bowl appearances. This is as good a reason as anybody. So giving it a shot and being open about taking the shot, I think is a very reasonable thing for the Bills to do. And on top of that, we've talked about this before, Gardner Johnson himself is older and one would think more mature, so maybe less likely to be a problem. Rachel could still 1,000% be right. And if Rachel is right, then I'm also right about we are 100% going to be, hey, Joe, remember this thing you said in April? How's it going? Because that's how any media would roll and any situation would go with that with a head coach. Joe Brady was also asked the question, I assume this was from a Patriots media source, kind of like about the budding rivalry. You know, the Patriots are the team now, went to the Super Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. And Brady said when it came to paying attention to the Super Bowl and all that stuff, he said, I hope my players didn't care who was in the game, but they do understand that they were the team. They were the one that won the division. And then he said, I don't watch the Super Bowl. And the reporter was like, you don't? It's the game, right? And here's what Brady said about why the Super Bowl is not on his viewing itinerary any year.
I'm pissed off. Like, I'll watch the Super Bowl when I'm a part of it. And, I go back and I watch the game and I understand all that. I'm not like that game never happened. But, look, it goes back to when I was in New Orleans. I was part of the Minneapolis Miracle. Thanks, Steph. I was a part of, the pass interference against the Rams. Thanks, Chrome. And, so some of those games after that, I was like, look, man, we put so much into this profession. And I want, when I get to be a part of that game, I'll watch it when I get to be a part of it.
So what do we think? What do we think, Rachel? The head coach doesn't watch the Super Bowl. To me, that sounds a little off, right?
Yeah, my initial reaction was, that's kind of weird. Like, I feel like that's, like, I don't know. But then his explanation makes me, I think that my takeaway from this is if you've doubted Joe Brady's just like desire to win and the qualities he has. I think that right there, the fact that he doesn't watch the Super Bowl until he says he's in it will be when he watches the Super Bowl, I think maybe proves that this is a guy who really, I mean, yes, everybody wants to win, but just really has this vision for what he wants his career, this team to be. And I mean, I still think it might be a little bit weird, but I mean, if it works, if it motivates you, then you do what you want to do.
I personally love it. Not because he doesn't watch because let's be honest, although he maybe didn't sit down the night of the Super Bowl and watch it, he went back and he watched film.
He did say that.
Looked at film, right? And I'm sure he
uses that as a resource for sure. Yeah.
I'm sure he's not the only head coach in the NFL who doesn't sit down and watch the Super Bowl, who goes back. I'm sure there are other ones out there. But what I love is that those
I'm not
other...
that sure. I'm probably right, but...
I'm sure there's at least a couple, at least a few.
You're probably
less
right.
Than 5 would be my guess.
Even if it's less than 5.
That is
but here's my point. My point isn't how many. My point, let's say there's only 2 other head coaches. If you ask those head coaches, they're going to tell you, oh, yeah, I watched it. Yeah, great for the Seahawks. Good for them. But Joe Brady is the type of guy that's just like I was saying earlier, just like, nah, didn't watch it. I'll watch it when I'm in it. Like, I don't want to watch it. It makes me mad. He used the word pissed off. And that's what I like about Brady. I don't care if he watches the Super Bowl or not. I just like that he's willing to go out there and say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And again, I'll go back to the point when you've never lost a game as a head coach, you can say what you want and get away with
stuff. Yeah, that's a good point.
However, the thing I say about this too, football head coaches are a unique breed. You have to be willing to work ridiculous hours, sleep at your office like for 4 months at a time. You are under the most intense scrutiny probably of any sporting event, save for an English Premier League soccer manager. You have a number, dozens, maybe hundreds of people who depending on you for their jobs, millions of fans who depend on you to create a champion. Like, you can't be a normal person and be doing that job. I always think that coaches and NFL players too have let me back up a little bit. We all have X amount of everything. Like, you might be a 5 out of 10 in smarts, a 7 out of 10 in strength, something like that. Football players and football coaches are like an 11 out of 10 in determination, work ethic. To be an 11 out of 10 in that means you got to be a 2 out of 10 somewhere else. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just you can't have a lot of everything. So I say all that to say, I've always thought that football coaches have to be a little bit off. And if Joe Brady is a little bit off with the way he approaches the Super Bowl, you know what that tells me? He's built to be a football coach. You know?
Yeah, I feel like everything he's said up until this point, just really is establishing this new tone of I'm a football coach and I'm here to win. I did like exactly what Caleb said. It's just, and I'm kind of more sold on it. Maybe it's not as weird as I thought.
I mean, it's still weird.
Okay, it's weird. But it's weird. But
weird.
It makes sense.
Weird is where coaches need to live, though, because you have to be weird to do this job. It seems cool because we sit there and watch the guy. The only thing that fans interact with is did you call a runner or pass and did you challenge that call? It's not about I have to do media 5 times a week. I have to do all these meetings. I'm in charge of when the meetings happen, how long they are. Apparently, I'm now in charge of whether or not the guys get hurt. I have to call the offense. I have to run the offense. I have to build the offense. I have to make sure. I mean, when you really think about the day-to-day of being an NFL head coach, that's the last job I would want in sports. So I don't think it's crazy that this guy the Bills have is also the same guy that wears shorts and a T-shirt when it's 5 degrees out at a football game. Now, if he wears that on the sideline during the game, then we might have some issues.
Why?
But during the for the
if
full
he's wearing
3 hours,
shorts and T-shirt
during the game for the full 3 hours of the game.
Oh, okay. I get why you're saying that. I get why you're saying that because he's not going to be able to coach the next week.
Exactly.
I get what you're saying.
Well, not only that, but even if you are in shorts and a T-shirt, I don't care how tough you want to be for 3 hours. Don't tell me that in the fourth quarter he is focused on the game when every part of his body is shivering like crazy.
I get what you're saying.
So that I have a problem with. It's not going to happen though.
No.
But walking to the game with shirts and T-shirt and shorts,
love it.
When I'm standing there and I'm cold also, I think it's weird, but I totally respect it and get it. All right, that was fun. That was actually more fun than I thought it would be. We do have a couple other sound bites. Maybe we'll do that on Monday. But we are out of time for today. So thanks as always, everybody, for watching. Remember, you can check this show out every single time over on YouTube and on Spotify. Have a great weekend. We are getting close to the draft. A lot more draft content coming for you down the pike really soon. For Caleb Carr and Rachel Liebert, I'm Thad Brown. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you again on Monday.